Hello to you. Thank you for joining us for a Lent conversation. I don't know what I'm calling these series of occasional interviews through Lent, but why don't we call it a Lent conversation for now? And I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by the musician and composer Rachel Chaplin, who I've had the great pleasure of getting to know fairly recently. Rachel, thank you so much for joining us. Hi.
Thanks, Brian. It's great to be here.
You've got an album, well, I was going to say coming out. We're speaking to each other just before Lent, but this is going to go out just after Lent. So it will have just come out on Ash Wednesday, and we'll come to that shortly. But just for now, would you share a tiny bit of your musical journey? Tell us, what instruments you play, what kind of music it is, where do you perform, that sort of thing?
So I am an oboist. I'm classically trained, and I have the great joy to play in orchestras. I play with English Baroque soloists. Most recently, very excitingly, played for the King's coronation just before the service. That was a great opportunity and absolutely lovely. But yeah, with that orchestra and with others, I play in concert halls in the UK and abroad as well. So a whole range of classical music.
Wow, the King's coronation. Go on, you've got to tell us a tiny bit more about that now.
um, yeah, I mean that was really wonderful. So for a long time, the King has been a patron of the Monteverdi choir and orchestras, of which the English Baroque soloist is a part. And so he asked the group to play, and we played right up near the throne itself before he came in, but the music before the service. It was, yeah, just an incredible thing to be there, and also to meet him a couple of days before he came to one of our rehearsals, and he's incredibly enthusiastic about music and supportive of the arts. So that was very special to be part of that.
Wow, that's amazing. What would you say, what's your favorite place that you've ever played music? I mean, we'll maybe talk about the kind of space music creates in a minute or two, but what would you say is your favorite kind of space where you've actually played and performed music?
Gosh, there are a few. Let's say three. So the Chapel Royale at the Palace of Versailles, pretty extraordinary. I love playing in sacred places. So lots of special churches that I played in. I played in Bach's church in Leipzig. With all that history there, it can't fail to be meaningful somehow. But actually also really memorable was a concert hall in Budapest. And the reason for that is that I was very, very close to the audience, and we were playing Bach cantatas, and I could see the audience faces, and they were so enthralled and so appreciative. This was really a memorable concert. Afterwards, they all stood on their feet and applauded, and you could just tell how much it meant to them to listen to live music. And yeah, you really felt that they knew how to listen, and it went right to their hearts. So that was really wonderful.
That's really interesting that you say that. Um, um, I was going to ask you about, the nature of performance and what's happening for people in the audience when they are kind of engaging with the music you play. But from what you say, it's almost like as though that was a special occasion because you really felt that connection. And could you say something about what that means to perform in terms of, with an audience? And you've said to me in a chat, in a lovely chat that we had a couple of weeks or so ago, that sometimes when you play music, there's it is performance, but then music can go beyond performance with the audience or with people interacting with it. Can you tell us a little bit about what you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the best instances, it is an ongoing storytelling where your listener does shape what story you want to tell and how you tell it. I had this beautiful program on the radio, and this was a professional storyteller, and she was so she had these set of stories that she tells, but they always change. And she said it's amazing how with an audience, the same story can be for one audience a comic thing, and then the same story for another audience can become really poignant. So when you sense the journey the listener's going on, that can bring a special meaning to it. And I guess, yeah, in answer to your question, listening to music, you can do that in very many ways. And as a performer, you can sometimes feel sort of observed, like you're
Yeah.
a sort of circus performer or someone's just enjoying your ability. And then there are other times when you realize there's something much, much deeper going on. And the music is, it can bring up so many different memories and feelings and pictures for people. Everyone really can be going on a totally different sort of journey with it, and it can be bringing to life so many different things for people. And when it has that depth of meaning, it's all the more rewarding for me.
So how aware can you be? Let's just stick to the performance side of things for a moment, and then we'll talk about your sort of more most recent project, which sort of kind of almost overspills that. But how aware can you be when you are performing? Because you have to give a performance, don't you? But of that sense of uh, connection with the audience and what's going on, because for,
Mm.
for me, music is it's almost like a sort of soulful exchange at its best, as someone who loves to
Mm.
listen to music. I'm not so good at playing it, but listening to it. Yeah,
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, uh, I guess it starts with a soulful awareness of oneself. That there's that when you're performing, to connect with one's own experience of being is the kind of starting point. And when that's in place, I think that opens out. And the second place would be to connect with the other performers on stage with you.
right.
And then when that's really strong, then you also can start opening out to the audience. I think if you do it in the reversed order, you run into trouble, because then you're focused always on what other people are looking at and you haven't found your place of
Yeah,
connection yourself.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's a perfect um lesson for life in itself, I guess, isn't it? That we start with ourselves and who we are soulfully and those around us, and then that begins to overspill.
Mm.
Can you can you tell me what how does music kind of touch your soul? I mean, I know this is a massive question,
Mm-hmm.
and you could take 2 weeks to answer it, but could you give us some sense of for musicians such as yourself, what does music really mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I might flip the question in a way, or not the question, but you said, how does music touch your soul? I think I might say that my soul speaks music. Um, that's to say that my I guess my a little bit of my journey, and with the album as well that's coming out, it's been a learning for me to be still and to be quiet. And I have a sort of busy character, and I have a busy mind, um, and I like things that way. But I have had to learn to let them subside, and to find this place of stillness. And the challenge for me has been, when I found that place of stillness, what is my soul saying? What can I hear? So in some ways, the music that I've started writing has been me listening to my soul and allowing it to sing its music.
That's a very good answer. I love that. Thank you. So, so your music, your new album is called Music from an Inner Space. Can you just tell us about it? How has it developed? What is it? I mean, it's a collection of psalms and stories. Would you say? How would you describe it?
Yeah. Well, let me show you the cover first, shall I?
Oh,
Shall we try and do that?
well, look, and I'll do that.
Oh,
So that
Brian, look,
on
how
both
amazing.
sides. It's absolutely beautiful. It has exquisite artwork that you can tell us about as well.
I
And
will. I will credit the artist Marissa Wojtenko. Do look her up. She's a wonderful artist in America that I came across in that bleak period of the pandemic. I found her on Instagram whilst looking for other artists who might term themselves sacred artists.
right,
And I asked for her permission to use this image on my album. And it's I'm trying to remember what she calls the image. Oh, hidden places. That's it. Very beautiful. It felt like it was just the right visual image for what this album is. This is a collection of psalms and sacred songs, and it features 3 interludes as well. They are, so there's a setting of Psalm 51, a setting of Psalm 1, 2 songs which set verses from Psalm 23. And then there are 2 stories. Yeah, I've actually written 2 poems, one about the anointing at Bethany and one about the life of Christ as viewed through Mary's eyes, as if through Mary's eyes. And I guess those poems have come out of a little bit of a kind of Ignatian engagement with scripture, where I've imagined myself into those scenes, and so much so that I've kind of felt things that I've then expressed as if I were the character.
right.
So this album, yeah, what else to say about it is that there's solo songs and it features the singing of someone you know, Brian, Avi Dobner. She leads the worship at Lee Abbey Retreat Centre, and is a completely wonderful, also what I would term sacred artist, with a beautiful singing voice and a beautiful heart and spirit. And she has brought these songs to life in such a beautiful way. And they are accompanied by me on the piano and by a string ensemble. So it's a string quintet, a double bass, a cello, a viola, 2 violins. And there are 2 tracks with my husband Sam playing trumpet as well.
They're absolutely exquisite, and I would encourage everybody to search them out, and we'll let you know at the end how to do that exactly. There's a setting of the Lord's Prayer as well, isn't there?
There is,
Which,
yes, there
which
is.
I've just found really help. I've had a sneak preview, so I've been listening to this, and it's you create a sublime space. Thank you. Thank you for sharing the music of your soul, which flows out. What do you hope will come of this music? What do you hope for when people listen to it, Rachel?
I'm always really happy when someone writes to me and says, that track made me cry. I think why that brings me happiness is because I know it's reached them. And I guess that in the end, my I guess my desire with it all is that each person would connect with their deepest being. And when you've been moved very deeply, that has happened. So I hope that that this music will be a solace to people. Some of these tracks I wrote when I felt very bleak. I felt very kind of alone in my own fears, I guess, even though surrounded by as many loving people as one would want in a life. I think we all go through those experiences. And for example, the last track, In the Valley, which is the setting of those words from Psalm 23, when I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. And you can read those words and think, well, that sounds great. To feel the presence of someone with you when you are actually in those circumstances is completely different. And I wrote that piece feeling very desolate, and as I wrote it, I felt the presence of that person with me. So those words, if you like, became true as I expressed those feelings. So that was a very beautiful experience, and I think, and I hope, and people have said that when they listen to that track, they have experienced that as well. So I guess that's my hope for this album.
That's so interesting that that's an amazing thing about that sense of solace. And I mean, I was going to say to you, it's for me, it's easier to listen to music that has what we might call resolution, that's kind of, I suppose, major key, kind of brings you back round quite happily. And we kind of search that out in our spiritual life, don't we? Because that's the way we want things to be. But actually, that's not the way life always is. So I was going to ask you about that, because some of it, your music isn't just all happy and shiny, and it bears that element of I suppose I was going to say melancholy. Would that be right within it? And it certainly feels honest in terms of just the way it flows. I don't have the musical terms for it, but
yeah, certainly. I know exactly what you're trying to articulate, and that is really interesting. I think it expresses longing as well.
Yeah.
So I suppose there are two things I feel very strongly about as an artist. One is that that there is a beauty to what is made that resonates with the soul. I think when there is beauty, it allows people to connect, and it allows people to be moved. So that's very important to me. But there's another component, which is that it's truthful. And I suppose that's what you're saying, that it's kind of real to one's life experience. I think that's something that, if you like, historically classical music has done very well, there are tools to hold together both suffering and hope. So I think, there are elements in the music where, in fact, I had a friend listen to one of these tracks, and she said, what was that bit where it all went wrong? That and she doesn't have the musical terminology any as well either, but she was talking about the dissonance, and I said, well, it's saying that it's actually the words that, he'll redeem your life from the pit. Like, well, we can start to describe what the pit feels like.
Right.
Or grief. I mean, grief feels awful. Loneliness, it feels horrible. It's why would you want that expressed in something that sounded really pleasant? That it wouldn't feel to me genuine.
Mm.
So I think there are, yeah, I think it's important to try and it's just, you know, it's a struggle to hold together this, yeah, this is actually what my life feels like. And yet there is this, you know, there is this kind of, yeah, I think I can see some hope. I think I can see some light, even in the questions. I mean, that might be another way to term what you're talking about is that the harmony or the you know the music is still asking questions even as it tells you how things are, and that's something that music can do very successfully with lyrics. The words can be saying something,
Mm.
and at the same time your music can say, but really, you
Yeah,
know, it
yeah,
can do that layering
yeah.
really, really, really well.
That Thank you. And that gives me an opportunity to say that you also have this gorgeous booklet. Is booklet the right word?
I think that's just the right word.
Okay,
Yeah.
which provides the words and snippets of music and is such a tactile and beautiful accompaniment to your music. It's part of the experience and part of the you know, it feels beautiful, it looks beautiful, and it kind of invites you in, you know, into the music as an experience, really, as a, you know, as
Mm.
I guess we stream a lot of music in the background these days, don't we? Can you say something about how to how to listen well to music? Because for anyone who's going to listen to this, and I really hope that everyone listens to this beautiful music, how do we listen well?
It's really hard to listen well, just as it's hard to pray, um, just as it's hard to be still. Um, it takes it takes a willingness, and it takes time. I'm not very good at it myself, but yeah. So when I was making this album and thinking about how to release it, yeah, I kind of felt like, oh, music's so intangible now, and we stream it and it's anonymous, and you don't even have an object or something to pass on to your friends or your children. And
Yeah.
I really wanted to make an object, even though no one's got a CD player anymore. I have CDs, look at that, and I have vinyl even. Um, but the booklet, and there's actually a candle that goes with it as well. It's really in recognition of the fact that listening is a difficult thing, and it's to try and bring a bit more of a 3D experience, if you like. So I made this thing partly because I love the feel of paper,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the smell of it, and it in a way is saying, yeah, okay, come and sit down and engage with your body and your mind. So I made a candle as well. You haven't seen this, I don't think, but
No.
this I went on a bit of a journey with this. This is made at Quince Honey Farm in Devon from beeswax, and it's got a line on it from one of my songs, which is from In Bethany, which says a beautiful thing, which of course those famous words Jesus said of her, that she has done a beautiful thing.
Oh, yeah.
And it's really to say, actually taking a moment, and Lent is a great time to do that, taking some time to be still with one's soul and one's body and one's mind is a beautiful thing to do. And no one's going to make you do it. And you're going to have to put 100 things aside to do it. But it is a pure and beautiful thing to do. So I'm hopeful that with a candle to light and a booklet to hold in the hand, there's somehow more ways in to the music. And I think, you know, how to listen well. I think, you know, there's a just a role for the senses and for the imagination. And I think that to listen well, we need to trust our instincts. So I think, especially maybe with classical music, there's a feeling like, oh, I have to know something in order to be able to listen. Or like you would go to an art gallery and think, but I don't know. But you can go to an art gallery and just it's okay. You can just wander around and find the picture that speaks to you, and trust your ability, your senses, and your ability to perceive beauty. And what I would say to people is to listen. It's sometimes very helpful to listen with your eyes closed, or just focused on the candlelight, or on a beautiful scene, and allow your mind to see, to visualize what you're hearing. Yeah. To allow yourself to see pictures, and to allow yourself to feel what you feel, or to sense what you sense, and be led, as if through a beautiful forest or a wood, to, oh, I hear that little bird. Yeah, okay, now I can feel some bark. Or just allow your senses to be open, and see where it leads you.
Brilliant advice. Thank you very much. We need to stop in a moment. I don't want to stop. You've mentioned sacred artists, sacred art.
Mm.
I know, I'm sure we'd all say on one level that all, or most art is sacred, because it flows from kind of our flows from our creative energy, and we're made in the image of God and all of that. But what for you is sacred art? And just wanted to bring in that sense of the divine and God to this before we go, because we're stepping into Lent, and I'm so grateful, Rachel, for artists and musicians such as yourself, who open a space that otherwise we would not be able to step into. So maybe to end with, could you say something a little bit about what for you is sacred art, and and that journey that you've had into flowing into sacred artistry?
Yeah. I think one of the things when I'm approaching my music in a sort of intentionally sacred way, if you like, is first of all bringing the fullness of myself in all its disarray, all the things I'm pleased with and those I'm not pleased with, and secondly, using my art to be open to myself being changed by it. That's to say, I like very much the idea of creating with the creator, and that you allow yourself an openness to meet with him and see what there is to be made together. I think in that mindset, then the artistic practice is forever one of healing and of experience. And that's what I would hold to be sacred art, rather than a kind of performed art, if you like. Of course, those two intermingle all the time, but when you're talking about being intentional about sacred art, those are the kind of principles I would be drawing on.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. It's been a delightful half hour to converse and to share and to explore. And I'm really hoping that as many people as possible in our Lent community will be able to really listen well to your music and be inspired by who you are and your own journey. You've just expressed things so helpfully within this conversation, Rachel. So thank you. In terms of people accessing the music, you've got the physical product, and am I right in thinking that you're selling these at a couple of levels?
I am. I think probably the easiest way to access it all is to go through my website, which is rachelchaplinmusic.com. Chaplin as in Charlie rather than you know, one of those churchy folk.
And
RachelChaplinmusic.com.
I'll put that link below. So
Yeah,
people just click
that's
on
great.
that.
And everything through there, there'll be a link to my Bandcamp page, which is the easiest way to order any of the actual physical items. The three things come together in what's called a contemplation pack,
Hey.
which might be a nice thing to have during Lent or a gift. Yeah, but otherwise it'll also be available to stream as well, just the music on its own.
Okay, so people can stream it if they want to
Yeah,
as
absolutely. Yeah,
so let me encourage you to, to listen and to, and it would, the pack will not just make a wonderful companion for yourselves, but it would make a beautiful gift as well if you want, if someone's got a birthday coming up or whatever it is. And Rachel has launched Music from an Inner Space on Ash Wednesday, so there is very much a beautiful Lenten sense within everything actually that we've spoken about today, Rachel, that just sort of streams through. So thank you for creating something beautiful that can indeed accompany us through.
thanks for having me, Brian.
Thank you, Rachel. We'll keep in touch, and hopefully our paths will weave and cross again with the Lent community or Advent community or whatever it is. So thank you, bless you, and go
Thank
well.
you.